What's going on, everyone? Vampyr Gaming here, and if you pay attention and watch the previous video, you'll notice I had mentioned this, which has drastically gone down in price, which is huge, and I did mention that I just would not buy these at this price. There's a ton of value like this and more within these videos, so if that interests you, be sure to hit the subscribe button somewhere around here, and if you can do me a favor, right here you'll see a TCG link in the YouTube video description. You can click on that. It'll take you to TCGPlayer to shop singles. If you're already planning on purchasing anything, if you just do me a favor, click that. It helps me out a lot. I'll earn a small percentage of any purchase that you make, and I would greatly appreciate it. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into the video. So, of course, you saw Paradise Waterfall. It is a lot lower now, which we love to see. This card was overall very expensive. I felt like it was a little too high at around 30, a little bit less now, which we love to see. I'm okay with this being the price that it is. I think this makes a lot more sense. Again, it's a block 1 card, so we lose this card come April. And then Rayleigh is the talk of the town. Rayleigh and Zoro are the two new big meta decks that are bringing forth the most results in terms of OP12, with Zoro leading the charge and then Rayleigh behind there, with the potential for blue-purple to be banned and an unknown ban list in the air. Of course, operate with caution, but it's always safe to lean towards not blue-purple and not green-purple Luffy things. So things like Kid Killer, but Kid Killer, of course, is that EB01 that we know and love. And you play 2 Kid Killer for the most part in many Rayleigh lists, potentially up to 4th. You want to be like incredibly greedy. So if you don't have these already, highly encourage you to do so. It hasn't been reprinted in PRB01 nor PRB02, so this card is without reprint, and you can kind of like feel that with just the increase in purchases and not an insane amount available. So highly encourage that you pick these up sooner than later, because a lot of the other, this is one of the harder cards to get because it is just EB01 versus some of the others, and we already see a huge movement on some other rares. So we're going to take a look at Rayleigh, we're going to take a look at Zoro, and just all these cards that weren't reprinted in Premium Reprint Booster 2 or Volume 2, PRB02, and how they're kind of starting to move. So first up we have Sanji. Sanji is one of those cards that wasn't reprinted, made its way down to $4. It was around 10 for aggro Shanks, going back down with it being played in a more prevalent deck being Rayleigh. I think we could see it come right back up to around these. So highly encourage you pick up this play set. It's block 3, so it's good for at least 3 years worth of play. And then on top of that, it isn't reprinted in PRB02, so bare minimum for us to see this is likely going to be PRB03 or the Let's Play Together deck. So if you think it might be in there, you know, you have to kind of take our chances on that because we don't know what the scope of those is. But outside of that, it isn't up for a reprint until PRB03, so a lot of long-term play in this. And then Sanji. Sanji's a 2K. Again, this card has been reprinted a lot. TBD what they actually consider a reprint in terms of this card and if he makes the block list. Otherwise, he, of course, expires in April in terms of playability. But he is making his way up, a very played card. $2, just keep your eyes on that. Another thing is too, so a lot of you might not be familiar with the demo decks, but they actually have a non-foil variation of this that I have just used forever because that one, I think it just looks better. But there is a non-foil. It is the demo deck, so something to kind of keep your eyes on too, because sometimes these cards will be cheaper. In this instance, this one actually is not right now, but there were times like down here you can see in June it was like $2 or 80 cents, sorry, and then you still see here like this was a little bit more, so this one was a bit less. So just something to kind of keep your eyes on in terms of the demo version. Same thing here with Nami. Nami is, of course, one of the searchers that will find your 4-cost Luffy for Rayleigh, and this one is a manga. So there is a Manga Nami, so this card will be playable for the future of One Piece. This card will never expire. You can play it in OP420, OP69, whatever format floats your boat. You can play this card as long as it isn't banned. So you can play as Nami forever, and you can see here Nami can tend to get expensive, so I wouldn't be surprised if Rayleigh starts making moves. Of course, we have the demon that is OP13 on the horizon with Roger and every card having ramp and just every ability ever. I'm just waiting on the bottom deck event card. But you can play Nami forever. Nami will never go bad, which is fair. Fine, cool, great. I respect it. So, this is something to keep your eyes on. Nami, it's starting to good up there. Going to be $3, $4 soon. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it back up here once we actually get to the release. And it kind of catches people off guard. And again, this card will be playable for all time, for the life of the One Piece card game. So a lot of those cards that are mangas, and we'll talk about some more because we usually, again, I try to keep a little treat for those who make it like all the way through the video, like somewhere in here, just to kind of provide a little bit more value and insight. But yeah, Nami. And then again, the same thing here. You can see, so this one is actually quite interesting. It is the structure deck variant, and it is a cheap alternate art. It is literally just the same price as a Nami. You see $2-3. Highly encourage you to pick up these if you like them. I think it's a really good looking card, and it is textured, and it is very fan servicey. But wanted to put this on your radar. Some of you might not be familiar with the 3 Captains deck. It was the first ever 3-deck combo that they decided to release, and they've kind of like continually switched up the format. But yeah, they came with these, so these are also another cheap way to look really nice with your deck. And again, you can see like a lot listed here, so plenty available. If you think about playing Rayleigh, highly recommend you pick up your playset wherever you may find it. And then, of course, we have the demo. Again, like, sometimes we'll see these demo cards. Boom, there you go. Placed at a Nami, under $5. You buy both of these ish. And so like you see here, people with multiple at 70 cents. So some deals are out there if you want to go like cheaper route. Sometimes checking these demo cards, they had the red Zoro. I think they still give these out at events as well. They had the red green Luffy, and I think they went to the red Zoro in terms of these, and the Zoro one, yeah, again, has these. So these are just slightly cheaper right now, and they kind of get up to where the others are. So just wanted to put that on everyone's radar. It's a great way to kind of like save money. And like, again, they don't have a TCG photo, so it kind of throws it off. But it does say this, but these cards are legal. I've been using, and I've asked Orange before, because some, like the, what game is it? Union Arena? Their Union Arena demos are not legal for play, and they say that like these cards do say like demo on them, but they are absolutely playable. So I don't know why this is here, but yeah, cheaper alternative. These cards are playable though. Roronoa Zoro. So this, again, you play Zoro, and this is the cheapest version of Rush Zoro out there. Again, from the 3 Captains decks, and you can kind of see, Zoro can also get a little expensive. Got up to $5 back in March when he starts to see play, and like, when everybody started kind of playing Rush Zoro again, and Zoro. So another card that kind of like, again, very cheap. If you don't own a playset of these, I think it's just kind of worth it. Again, this card has a couple of alts. It was in the first set, and it was also a prize card. So I don't know if this was printed, like, because the first anniversary set, English, was printed in like block 2. I don't know if this would be updated because of that reprint. So this card is, of course, in danger of being rotated out. But good card in Rayleigh, so something to keep in mind. We can see this as we get closer to the format, and potentially as it gets closer to the ban and we get the bans, this card could see some movement. Same thing here. We have Roronoa Zoro from the Romance Dawn. This guy right here. This is the OG. I actually bought a couple of these. I think it's really cool. It's classic Zoro. This is just like, it's Zoro to its core. I love this one's look. I bought a bunch of them because I just think that this card is just, it's so relatively decent for what it is. A 3/5 that rushes, and I think it'll just forever be good. So this one's around $5. Maybe if you have some, maybe it's time, because they were pretty cheap at one point in time. because I was buying them for like 2s. Yeah, I was buying them around here. So if you had some laying around, you know, maybe get like $4 on it. A couple dollars in your pocket, a little bit of gas in the tank. And then, yeah, we move on to Tashigi. So let's kind of change pace, talk about Zoro and just green overall. So Tashigi is just on an absolute generational run here. From May to $3 to $7. Everybody's buying them up. 1, Zoro hype, but 2, Tashigi is not reprinted in PRB02. So again, not under consideration until either the Let's Play deck, because the Let's Play deck is green Zoro. Let's Play deck is green Zoro, or PRB03. So you can take your chances there. Again, if you need this for Bandai Card Fest, you need it. I imagine it goes down in price after Bandai Card Fest. There's a lot of things you usually do, but a lot of people need these for Nats, so I usually start to see a little uptrend in price. There's a big discrepancy between our prices and Europe's right now, which also usually means we're a little too high on our prices, but again, not reprinted, and you need it for Nats. I think if you don't need this card if you're not playing Bandai Card Fest, I wouldn't pick this card up. Also, potentially, like, you know, if you're talking cards for bans, this card, I've heard it in conversations. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I've heard people speculate it, so use your wits about you and just try to keep that in mind when it comes to this card. Then we go over to Dracula Mihawk. So what's interesting about Dracula Mihawk, if you're subscribed, you might have seen the notification, but there is illustration sets that have this as a reprint, which is quite interesting, which is why I want to just take a moment to talk about Dracula Mihawk. Because the reprint box is $20, and the cheapest version of this card is $11. So one of two things is going to happen. One, the alt is going to be more expensive than this, or the alt is so readily available that this card kind of just gets cheaper and it takes its price point. Because before you had to have the Zoro Sanji decks, and the Zoro Sanji decks are just getting harder and harder to find just because of this. And then, of course, the relevancy of Ivankov in Marco. And so this card is kind of like, you know, it's been 11 for a while. You know, it's even got up to like 15. It's been all over the board. It's also been quite cheap at some points too. You see here way back, once like Uda went away and we weren't playing this in Uda and whatnot and what have you. But there is more versions of this card essentially going into circulation, and previous illustration boxes, I mean, that like Boa was about 20 before the Dofi ban, kind of going down to like 15, then making our way down to 6. So I could see this essentially being our Boa, being around $15, and this card maybe settling at like 9, because people are going to sell this to buy the alt and what have you. So this could be like 9 and 15 type deal. Again, that's just total speculation. Take it for what it's worth. But there, if you were considering buying this Mihawk here at the end of August, so before Bandai Card Fest, you will be able to get potentially a more accessible variant of this. And the big thing to really drive home is last time they're both NA North America exclusives. So there was dash packs, and the dash pack versions were incredibly inexpensive because you kind of got them for buying a booster box, but after a while your LGS just doesn't sell enough like boxes, or like has way more promos than they have boxes, and they just rip them open, and they're usually quite cheap. So it's possible we get flooded with a bunch of non-textured like OP12 box dash promos for these, because they kind of line up in a line in like their releases. So we could see that and then see just a flood of cheaper alternatives just due to this card's overall price here. So just something to keep your eye on, use your judgment, but yeah, be careful if you need Mihawks right now. And now for the little treat, right? So there are a couple of cards, and some cards have been kind of going up in price, and it's part one thing, but it's part another. That being, of course, Port Gisti Ace. We'll talk about Port Gisti Ace, but Port Gisti Ace is a manga, and he hasn't been reprinted, which makes it very hard to get them. This Boa, correct me if I'm wrong, also hasn't been reprinted. I don't believe that this one was in PRB01, and I know it's not in PRB02. It does have a alternate art versions in the Warlords set, But this boa, I don't believe was reprinted. I don't think it was one of the cards reprinted. And is a manga. So there's the potential for this card to like continually have use down the line. So I don't think it hurts to, I think it just doesn't hurt to own a playset if you don't already, because this card will never expire in terms of the One Piece card game, and there could go some duration of time before we see any kind of meaningful reprint, just due to it not having any relevance. They usually have like a relevance bias and try their best to do the relevant cards, but sometimes those like quote irrelevant cards get left behind, and so it could be a while before we see like a reprint of this, and at some point this card could become incredibly valuable. But it is like 60 cents. Playset cost you $4 depending. If you get free shipping, great deal. But yeah, at 60 cents I would just pick up a playset of these, because like you take a look, Portgas Diaz was literally worthless for so long, being an OPO2 card. It was an OPO2 card that wasn't reprinted, and for the longest he was worth so little. $4. Now he's 13. One, because of the red blue ace, which is looking semi-promising, but Roger is looking infinity more promising. So use what you will with that. But you can kind of see here, right? So this is OPO7, but again, there are just these cheaper cards that are good forever. OP69, OP420, all these sets that will come later down the line. These cards are still going to be playable because they have mangas. And so because of that, I think they're like the most versatile cards you can own, because when they become playable, like whenever a card, because rotation exists, whenever a good card is going to enter back into rotation once it's been rotated out, they're going to have to, by definition, reprint it. And so it's probably going to be a very accessible printing. They don't have to reprint manga cards like that, because they don't have to add them back into rotation. And so on those grounds, they're some of the best cards to have once rotation comes around, because again, they're good forever and they have zero requirement to reprint them to put them back into circulation at some point. And so you have cards like Boa Hancock, which is a block 2 card. You have cards like Eustace Captain Kidd, another block 2 card, and block 2 is set to rotate out in 2027. We lose block 1 in 2026. We'll lose block 2 in 2027. So little less than 2 years worth of play on these cards. But again, Eustace Captain Kidd also has a manga. And I'm showing the alt art here because it's just kind of cheap. And I mean, there's not a lot of sales. So you can get some. Like, I would probably go for like 4s. You see in somebody's binder, offer them a 4. Anything like that. And as always, of course, if you're going to pick these up, make sure you click that link in the YouTube video description or down below in the comments. But I think these are like the most cheap and best. Boa and Eustace are the cheapest and best cards overall. Because Eustace, of course, you get the Dawn Minus, you get the Ramp. It's a classic purple card. And then you have Boa, which essentially stops an attack and is a 6/8. So it's a great vanilla stat line, and it stops an attack. So I think these are the two like best, and you can get these for like quarters, the super rares. But again, they're good forever. This one was reprinted, but I don't believe Boa was. But this one was reprinted in PRB01. And so, yeah, moral of the story, I think that these both are two great ones. Again, this one was reprinted. I would prioritize the Boa just because, again, and it might be like 8 months from now, but that we do know that OP14 is a Warlord set, so a lot of potential there. We don't really know, but again, like at 60 cents, I think this is literally one of the best cards you can own, just because it never goes bad. It never goes bad. And switching gears once again, kind of talking about Zoro again, we're back here at the Cavendish conversation. This card went all the way down to 20 something dollars. You see 28, low of 24, high of 35, and then low of 28. And then it slowly just, everybody ate them up. We need this card for Bandai Card Fest. And the Bandai Card Fest demand is very real. Yes, it's getting reprinted. Yes, this will probably be $3 after Bandai Card Fest once PRB drops, because PRB has a super rare in every single pack. This is a super rare, but we need it for Bandai Card Fest. And It's EB01. Again, going back to Kid Killer, just to echo that, you're going to need Cavendish if you want to play Zoro. So, it is what it is. Everybody ate through the cheap ones, stocked up. But again, this card is, if you do not need this for Bandai Card Fest, I would sell this expeditiously. I would sell this so fast. I would be driving to the store while listening to this if I wasn't going to play this at Bandai Card Fest. And I'd be like, cash me out. I would throw these on TCGPlayer right now. Cash me out. Throw them on eBay. Cash me out. Because this card shouldn't be this price at all. But it's hard to get, and we need it for Bandai Card Fest. So it is what it is. And then we'll talk about Nami. So Nami's another one of these cards that was not reprinted. And yeah, it's decent effect. We do know also that there is we got Bonnie, which is an Egghead type leader. Not super relevant because this card is evergreen and generic. But we also know that we're getting an Egghead Luffy around February 2026. It is a Block 2 card. So, of course, expires in 2027 in terms of gameplay. But a lot of gameplay still left. A lot of games still to go. And it wasn't reprinted. So, if they want to add it back into circulation, of course, it'll be like PRB03. And then it'll give it a new block number. So, it could very well be waiting for that. But in the meantime, it is quite cheap. And we're getting a Luffy in like February 2026. So, use your best judgment, but this is, of course, you know, all those other non-reprinted cards. You also kind of see the upward movements here in the past, like, month, which we're seeing on a lot of these non-reprinted cards as well. And then, again, just kind of talking about non-reprinted cards, we've got Tony Chopper, and he's already back up to $26. Again, so this is what's unfortunate about this is it is EBO1, and it is a manga. So, again, there are these Let's Play decks which have been shown to have good cards. TBD, again, what the contents are if they keep the typical deck cadence, 2 super rares. Because then they're going to reprint 2 super rares. We know the red one's Dragon. We know Zoro's getting the 9-cost Zoro. We don't know if this card it's red Luffy, the Gear 5 Luffy. So, this card is a great card for his effect example. And so it's tough to say if this card would be in it. If this card isn't in it, I think long-term this card's going to be crazy. A lot of the animal engine is like Block 2, so again, 2027. But this Chopper is a manga, so this Chopper will be playable for the dawn of time. Which means, again, if they don't have to reprint it to put it back into circulation. So, something to keep in mind, but again, us here in North America, we are getting these Let's Play decks, which is Blue Yellow Nami, Green Zoro, and then Gear 5 Red Luffy. And this card, of course, fits that theme. We talked about, you know, potentially like, maybe I didn't even, but like Tashigi and Zoro, or Cavendish and Zoro, anything like that. So, we don't really know what the contents of those decks are going to be. Again, like if they're going to have a bunch of super rares, like, and it's going to be a genuine playable deck, or if it's like the deck you'd buy and they have 2 super rares in them. So we don't know. Be careful with this. Of course, skyrocketed ever since. And then again, if it isn't in that deck though, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to pick this card up. And then finally, to send us all off, let's kind of talk about Viola. Again, another one of those non-reprinted cards. Hasn't moved a ton. Block 2, but great card overall. Gives you a blocker and also gives you potential life manipulation or even like opponent's knowledge. So I really like this card. You know, it lets you flip them face down. Relevant in potentially Pudding and of course BY Ace. Also kind of went hard in what's that deck? Blue Yellow or Black Yellow Luffy, Black and Yellow. So use what you will. I think this card is a cool card. I wish it was reprinted, but it hasn't had any super relevance. I don't see it being in anything. Again, 2027 worth of play. Use your best knowledge. But yeah, I think it's, you know, I'm glad I own my playset. Something to kind of keep your eyes on. There's nothing on the horizon that would be like Dressrosa that I can think of. Because I know the next one's Warlords. But just kind of something to keep your eyes on. as we progress. And as always, again, if you found this content of value, if you could do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. And click that link in the YouTube video description. I'll see you all in the next one.